Hello and a very warm welcome to the Big Bright podcast. My name's Emma, and in our podcast mini-series, we're celebrating International Women's Day by interviewing women who are pushing the boundaries and making a difference in their industry. Angela Nyman is Bright's powerhouse CMO, whose management career has spanned industries including poker, gaming and tech, all of which are notoriously male-dominated. We've invited Angela onto the podcast to discover just how it feels to be the only woman in the boardroom, how to get your voice heard through the noise of a large corporation, and her top tips for successful leadership. So welcome, Angela.
Hey, Emma. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's lovely to have you here in our virtual recording studio. Something I should maybe have mentioned in the intro is that you've recently come back from your maternity leave. So not only are you juggling work, but you're also looking after your little one, Maxie. So how's that going?
Yeah, it's good, thanks. I went on maternity leave in the summer of 2019, just went for over a year. And I know it's a massive cliche, but time has really flown past. The first few months were a bit of a whirlwind, if I'm honest, but a year and a half later, I have a slightly better grip on what's going on.
And now you're back, and did you come back like in between those times? Did you use your kit days, or how did you find that?
Yeah, so I think one thing that really helped me get back into work was the fact that after about 4 months of not being at work at all, being pure maternity leave, I used my keep in touch days. So you get me on maternity leave, so you get 10 of them, and I used them to do monthly check-ins with the team. And I did also have a monthly clear out of my email inbox, so that when I did come back to work in September, after a year of maternity leave, I was already aware of most of the conversations that were going on in the company. So it wasn't as daunting as some of the stories that I've heard from other women, 400 or 500 emails, and you don't even know where to start. Having those keep in touch days for me has been very, very useful. So 2 positive things that are actually results from the current COVID situation and the lockdowns that really helped me were obviously, first of all, being able to work from home. I live in the country, about 40 minutes drive from Brighton. So saving that time commuting each day has been absolutely amazing. And I've definitely been more productive as a result. So that was a really big thing for me. The other thing was, as we went 100% remote, all of our major conversations at work are now happening in Slack, which we, like many people, use as our internal communications tool. So even when I wasn't working, when I had a bit of time, I was able to just browse ongoing conversations in the different channels, looking at what feedback people had and decisions that were made without having to actually bug people for links or reports or going through tons of emails. Those things really helped me, again, just getting back into work quicker. I felt like I could also be more helpful to my team and the company because I already had all the background information. If we hadn't used Slack for literally all of our conversations, except obviously for Zoom or Google Meet, then I really think that it would have been taking me longer to get back into the workspace.
Yeah, because some people find, I think, that they just don't want to see anything. But I think personally, I would feel the same as you, that I would quite like to be able to delve in and just keep in touch a little bit, because otherwise a year's a long time, isn't it? To feel like you don't know what's going on in your job, and it's easier to get back in with Slack. But yeah, it's interesting to sort of think about, like, when you came back, everything had changed and no one was in the office.
I know, it was definitely a big change happening obviously when I was on maternity leave. We just redecorated the office and we finished in January. Absolutely beautiful. Then obviously everyone had to go remote in March. So I think obviously it's a shame, but I do feel like it has been useful and people have really made an effort to be more creative, be more, collaborate more as well, because we know, we don't have the time to be together like we used to.
And we're all so much better at video calls, aren't we?
Definitely. I think everyone's tech experience is definitely ramped up massively.
So when I delved a bit deeper into your career path, I was really interested to see the span of industries that you've worked within, everything from e-commerce and tech to gaming. So this is really the beauty of marketing. Your skills can transfer to any sector.
Yeah, definitely. I've been in marketing now for, about 17 years or so, and I've done tons of different things. I've worked agency side as well as brand side, so both B2C, B2B, in a variety of countries and industries. So I consider myself very lucky in that aspect, as it's definitely helped me grow both as a person, but also become a more well-rounded marketer, I would say. If I'm honest, earlier on in my career, I didn't actually actively choose the companies I worked for or the industry. I remember applying for a few different roles after I graduated from my university in Italy, and I decided that London would be the best place for me to go to get a job. So I moved to London. Back in early 2000, that was very easy to do. You could just apply for a job anywhere. So
not so much now.
no, that has changed slightly, unfortunately. I had already lived in London during my second year of university, as we had a campus there. But at the time of graduation, I lived in Tuscany. So when I moved to London, my first job was to be a marketing manager for a couple of famous nightclubs in London before I moved to what was at the time a top 50 advertising agency in Farrington, as I felt I needed some of that branding and advertising experience to kind of further my education and to further what I was doing. And from there on, I actually got headhunted by a gaming company to move to Gibraltar in 2006. The gaming industry was booming at the time, and almost every single gaming company in Europe was looking for a bilingual territory manager to grow their product in the different countries. So I stayed in Gibraltar in poker for a couple of years before I decided to take a career break and travel the world. And after that, I moved back to London yet again. And once that, I got persuaded to return to the gaming industry to run their live tournaments as the marketing events and partnership manager. And I think it was at that time that I probably became aware of the fact that I was sometimes seen as a woman in situations such as negotiating with partners or building new relationships with prospective clients or leading meetings, especially with, more senior, 99% of the time, male managers or leaders.
So do you have any examples of people treating you, like you said, as a woman instead of just a person that was pretty capable of their job? Is there an instance you can share with us about that?
There are quite a few of them. I remember once being asked at a negotiation meetings in Italy when my boss was going to arrive and if we should wait until then. And it was only me on that trip. So that would have been a very long wait.
That's outrageous.
Yeah, I know. I think cultural aspects played into this a lot as well. I definitely feel like I had to prove myself a lot more than if I had been a man. But once the relationship was established, I was always well respected. But getting there wasn't always an easy journey. It was educational, and I learned a lot about national cultural differences and how it affects leadership and what it's like being a woman in a very male-dominated work environment.
So many of the industries that you've worked in, like you said, had a male-dominated workforce. And I'm assuming that's especially in senior roles and on the board. So in terms of challenges developing that, did you have any challenges working in those environments as a woman, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I think especially at the earlier stage of my career, I would say that I looked very young for my age. I was very enthusiastic and positive, and I'm also Swedish with an accent. And it would happen a lot that when I would meet new people or entering a meeting, they would assume that I was the work experience or the assistant. And by that stage, I already had 7-8 years of experience minimum of working after graduating. So I guess I just kind of got used to it. I do think, though, that if that was now and not back in the mid to late 2000s, that just would not have been acceptable in the same way. We've definitely moved forwards. Another example, it's still very just fresh in my mind, is I rejoined one of my companies at a different location back in 2009. One of the C-level execs, let's call him Steve, on my first day back at work, he walked past me and he said very happily, "Oh, Angela, it's so great to have you back to decorate the office."
Oh, no.
And at the time, I ran what became the second largest poker tour in the world with 25 events globally during my time there. I increased our profit with 500% over the time. It was completely unacceptable to, say something like that. But at the time, I think I was just too shocked to actually say anything. I remember thinking that I was so much more than that. I probably should have said something, but I just started in the office and I guess I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. It was and still is a very male-dominated industry.
And I think that's something that a lot of women can relate to. I think there's a crazy statistic of how many people have had casual sexism comments and things like that. But I'd be really interested to know that if you could go back in time now and talk to the younger Angela and sort of say to her, how you should deal with that situation, what would you advise now after having the years of experience that you've had?
I have wondered about that and, what I would have done or could have done differently. I think the main thing was that no one wants to start work and on the same day head down to HR to complain about someone. But at the same time, there are certain behaviors. If they affect someone negatively, you have to speak to that person. So I think that's what I would advise my younger self or anyone in that position is what I, should have done is just to speak to Steve and let him know how his comment could come across as inappropriate and to tell him that I hoped he also realized that I was in fact hired for a certain set of skills rather than just my appearance. And I know he didn't mean anything bad with it. In fact, he was really happy to see me, but clearly this is a really inappropriate response.
And I wonder whether if Steve is still working in the same role now, whether he is still saying the same things, or hopefully Steve understands a bit more about gender equality in the workplace.
Definitely.
But yeah, it's fascinating. And I think we've all got times that we would like to go back on and say things, but in the moment you're so shocked, and sometimes you are young and inexperienced, and I'd love for you to go back and talk to Steve now.
Definitely. Once I moved into tech, I'd say there were different challenges. Perhaps because I was older and more experienced, I didn't find the challenges of what I had when I was younger the same. They're definitely different, but there were definitely challenges of becoming older in the workplace as well as being a woman.
What sort of challenges do you mean in terms of that age and gender?
Well, I think obviously, first of all, like with everyone, when you become more senior, you're under a lot more pressure to achieve results. That all makes sense, and that's absolutely fine. What tends to happen though is, as you become older as a woman, there's always the question on, am I going to have children? And I remember being, asked in an interview a few years ago if I had or was planning on having children.
Illegal.
Yeah. I think this form of questioning can be very detrimental to women, and I think it's really unfair. A working mother is constantly juggling responsibilities and tasks, and I've never worked with a mother who has, performed worse because she also has children. In fact, I find it the opposite. I feel that every working mother is very conscious about the fact that they may be more scrutinized, and they tend to be very focused on proving that they can still do their job to a high standard.
Every working mother I know has that fear of being seen to not be pulling their weight, when in fact they're probably doing twice as much in a day than everyone else.
Definitely. I can feel it, now as well. And I think, our company is really good with this, but there's still, unfortunately, a discrepancy between, men and women. We have to make a choice about putting our career on hold to have a baby, which is fantastic that we have that choice. But, I can also see how it can be really hard to be back exactly to where you started. It's not easy, that change.
Yeah, absolutely. The added pressure of juggling work and home life.
Definitely. We see that a lot, especially now as well. But I think, in general, if your child is sick, you have to manage looking after them. There's always work deadlines, especially if you're, senior and you have teams that depend on you as well. Yeah, I think it's really important for managers to show empathy towards working parents. And, I'm very lucky, but my current company is really good at that.
No, absolutely. And I think it's something that I'm about to deal with as well. It's something that's on my mind. And I think we spoke before when we chatted, but it's something that also you don't really think about until it happens to you. And then it suddenly becomes this massive thing that you have to think about. And actually, I wonder whether a lot of men have to think about that as well. And I think the balance is happening. Like my partner's going to take shared parental leave, which will help. But I think there's still a massive stigma against that. And it's interesting how companies do react to people wanting to do things differently or take their full maternity leave. But what would your advice be for a woman who is wishing to forge a management career within a male-dominated industry?
So I think, first of all, we should never feel that our input isn't valid. There is so much research these days on the importance of businesses needing a diverse leadership team and how having female leaders increase productivity, it enhances collaboration, and companies with a diverse leadership team are more likely to be innovative and hit or exceed their targets. So in my opinion, only good things can come from having, more female leaders in the world and a diverse team with different cultures, as well as having female leaders in there. One thing that I've always tried and do is, be really prepared, especially when going into meetings or wanting to propose a new idea. Always do your research. You can never be over prepared. Be curious and learn from others. I think that is, becoming increasingly important to always, think what else, what can I learn? What else can I learn? What can I do? Having a mentor and a really good network of women, if you're able to. I've been lucky enough to have a couple of great female coaches, and it's been really useful, both personally and professionally, to be honest. I've worked with some great women who I admire and that I still call friends to this day. It is lovely having a great network of female peers. And I think just be true to yourself. Trust your gut. Whether you're a woman, man, or non-binary, you don't and should not need to be anyone or anything else. If you're constantly questioning your thoughts and your role, then, you are perhaps not in the right workplace environment. And you should maybe think about if that job is right for you, if it's actually making you happy. At the end of the day, gender should be obsolete. And hopefully we'll get to the point where it's about being the best version of yourself. We should all have the chance to contribute our skills and expertise to the world and to be somewhere where we feel that it can make a difference and where people appreciate you.
That's incredibly eloquently put. I agree completely. And I think that's just really positive points as well, in terms of, yes, we might be treated slightly different in certain industries, but there's always a positive spin, and there's always a way to learn from that and kind of be at the forefront of trying to make sure that we're just doing the best we can, no matter who we are, what role we're in. So talking about roles, and you've obviously touched upon encouraging your team. So you currently manage the Bright marketing team, and I know that you're really passionate about empowering your colleagues and also championing their self-development. So can you share some of your tips for successful leadership of a team?
Yeah, so I think it's only been the last, I would say, 8 years or so that I've really gotten into trying to understand more about what good leadership really means and the impact that it has on your team or on a business. And the same as if you have a bad leader, what the impact is then. So I think what I try to do is manage my team from below. Right? So it's like an inverted pyramid. I'm at the bottom and my team's at the top. I will ask them questions like, okay, if you want to do this, A, are we going to lose any customers? Is this going to be detrimental to our business or to our brand or anyone else in the team? If the answer is no, then they usually have the freedom to go ahead and do what they want to do as long as they can show that they've thought it through and it solves a problem that we're having. If I have any concerns or any further questions, I will usually try and explore what problem they're actually trying to solve and then go through with them if there are any other solutions they may not have thought of. But at the end of the day, it's not about me and this leadership style. It focuses on the team and the autonomy that I give them. And I think that is really, really important. I think creating a safe environment where people can work to their natural best, you're always going to get better results from them. You need to trust the people you've hired to do the job. Micromanaging will just, remove all your creativity and your desire to work, basically.
And that's something that we've talked a lot about on the Bright podcast, is this element of trust and trusting the workforce, which has become even more important now we're all remote, hasn't it?
Definitely. I think that's really important. It's something that I remember we used to talk about when I was championing remote work years and years ago. A lot of people would say, well, how do I know this person's going to do the job if they're not sitting next to me? Like, I can't control them. I can't see what they're doing. And, my response has always been, but, you hired them. You have to trust that they're going to do a good job. And also as a leader, you need to inspire them and motivate them and lead them so that they want to do a good job. I think that, that's really important. One thing that I'm noticing a lot in the last few years as well is that as a leader, you have to make sense. People will not trust you as a leader if you make a lot of changes or decisions that don't make sense, or they aren't based on data, or it doesn't solve an actual need. And I think that's really important to understand as well. And I think especially when working remotely, because the changes that you make might be just feel a bit more severe because you're not part of the conversation as much. You're not just in the office just hearing these conversations come up. They just tend to happen sometimes. So I think involving your team makes sense. Don't be afraid to roll up your sleeves, do the job. I've done every single job within marketing, to get to where I am. I do give my team a lot of autonomy, but I do also expect them to want to do a really good job. We should all be proud of the, work that we do. I think it's also really important to not make it about yourself. So as a leader, we take the blame when things go bad and we praise the team when things go well. I heard a really good saying once, which was, it's very easy to be a good leader or manager when you have a good team. And that's true, right? Because they make you look good. I think that's really important. And I think the last thing I would say is just praise, inspire, and lead. Right? There are so few leaders who manage to inspire people, by doing all of the above and probably tons more of things as well. But you should be able to create an environment within your team where people feel inspired by you to do their best and to, achieve the great things that they can do.
Another old saying is a happy workforce is a productive workforce. And of course, if we're all sitting here feeling miserable and hating our colleagues, it's just not going to be a positive space, is it? So I love that idea of, just praise, inspire, and lead, and never forget to say thank you, because especially when you're remote, it's easy for things to go under the surface. And actually, I know that you did that this week with a colleague in your marketing team, where you did actually kind of say, just thanks for doing a great job. And I saw that really picked her up. So I see firsthand you doing this. So yeah, it's great. And you're walking the walk, and as well as talking the talk.
It's such an easy thing to do, just to say thank you, or I noticed you're doing a really good job. But again, I think it's something that is also so easy to forget.
Absolutely. And I think that's sometimes just a really simple thank you can completely flip a mood or change a conversation. And yeah, it's something that I think every leader or manager should always keep in their head.
Definitely.
And vice versa. I think that a team should praise their manager because otherwise it's a really thankless job.
Indeed.
So we're almost at the end of our podcast, and I know we've covered a lot of great stuff, but I'd just really like to know kind of personally what you enjoy about working in marketing, because you've obviously had a really great career so far. So do you think this is, I don't want to say this is it, but can you ever see yourself changing roles?
So, to answer your first question, what do I enjoy most about working in marketing? I think it's always been the variety, the pace, and the constant changes. You constantly have to keep up to date with the, what's going on, externally in your industry, in your area of expertise, in your team, with your product. As a born learner, which is, that really appeals to me. I love learning. I also like the fact that it encompasses such a range of skills, as well as activities and different mindsets. In one day, I might be creatively brainstorming about how we can further our brand, to going into processing data on our customers or competitors, as well as reviewing campaigns that we're doing, or, helping to write a blog or planning an event. There's so much stuff going on all the time. I think, with regards to changing my role, I don't have any thoughts on that right now. But as I got further into my career and I was managing larger teams, I got very interested in leadership and how to successfully grow teams. I've had some bad leaders and managers, as we all have, but I've also been lucky enough to have a few good ones. I see it as a responsibility rather than a role, and growing people and keeping them on track in their career, happy and productive, can be really challenging, but it's so rewarding. So I think if I were, ever changing, roles, which I'm not planning on doing right now, I think because I've had a few good coaches, I love reading books about coaching and leadership and how to further people. I'm doing a course right now, actually. I've done tons of different leadership and management courses as well throughout my career, but, I don't see myself steering too far away from marketing. But if I ever did move away from it, it would be moving into something like more of a coaching or pure leadership role, I'd say.
Yeah, and I think it kind of really feels like that's a natural thing, like that could happen. But at the moment, you're able to use your interest and your experience in that in your current role, which is amazing.
Definitely. Definitely.
So, Angela, it's been fantastic to have you on. Thank you so much for sharing so much wisdom with us. And also, being really honest about the challenges that you've encountered, because I think it's fascinating. And if anyone would like to get in touch with Angela, you can find her on LinkedIn. It's Angela Nyman.
That's correct.
Yeah, and obviously check out our podcast for plenty more episodes in our mini-series about International Women's Day. Thank you, Angela.
Thanks, Emma. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here. And thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to the Big Bright podcast. Make sure to subscribe to never miss an episode and check out our website at builtbybright.com.